Nervalis 9 cracked beneath boiling skies, its once vast crystal plains shattering as tectonic veins ruptured with every tremor. The atmosphere had thickened into a suffocating haze, storm currents colliding with plasma burns from orbit. The Carinth matriarch limped across fractured ledges, her scales dulled and torn, one wing trailing uselessly behind. In her talons, she clutched the remaining hatchling of her clutch, its breast shallow, its eyes wide with primal confusion. Another cry rose behind her. The second hatchling had fallen. She turned, torn by instinct and reality. The chasm had swallowed her young, a dark gash in the earth spewing heat and static. The screeches were fading. Her body was scorched from the last rescue. Her muscles twitched with exhaustion. She stepped forward, hesitated. Her head trembled toward the sinkhole, but she knew, if she leapt, either would survive. She roared, a sound not of rage but grief, a guttural note that echoed across the valley of ash. Far above the chaos, in orbit, silent observation stations hovered. The Council's silver-eyed analysts logged data coldly. Another extinction event in progress. The Carinth had once ruled regions of space. Now they were reduced to a handful of scattered nests on collapsing worlds. No interference order stood. Natural selection, they claimed. Weakness was a disease best left to die. An emissary ship hung among them, sleek, battered, not elegant like the others. A human vessel. Aboard it, no committee. No calculation. Only one voice, distorted slightly through the Council channel. A request. Permission to assist. Static answered at first. Then laughter. The Vortari rep barked. Humans? You'll burn before you touch ground. Another muttered. They're obsessed with heroics. Let them watch and learn what futility looks like. The humans did not argue. The channel closed. The vessel shuddered as a launch pod detached from its underbelly, fired downward, pushing against the heat bloom like a spear dropped into a furnace. It spun, caught turbulence, but kept falling. Through clouds bleeding with ion fire. Through winds that bent trees to pulp. No weapons. No escorts. Only an older model drop pod, manual control, analog dials, no AI flight compensation. Below, the mother dragon staggered. She had not left the cliff edge. Her instincts demanded she protect the surviving hatchling. But her eyes kept drifting to the void that had taken the other. Her claws tore lines in the rock. No escape route remained. No allies came. Her body would not survive a second trip. Then a sound foreign to her kind cracked the silence above, machinery shrieking against velocity. She looked up as the pod tore down like a meteor, stabilizers screaming. It struck down with brutal precision not far from the collapsed site. For a moment, the dust swallowed everything. Alien sensors caught the impact. Telemetry fed back to the Council. Heartbeat readings. Human vitals, erratic but stable. The other species watched without speaking now. No rescue mission. No coordination. Just one suit, one life form, stepping out into an alien hell without backup. The man emerged into an oven. His suit sizzled against the air. Visibility was near zero, ash falling like snow. His boots sank into warped terrain. Instruments flickered, but he moved forward, guided not by scanner but by the faint sound of something breathing in pain. The hatchling was barely visible, wedged between splintered roots of a collapsed growth spike. Its wing was caught beneath fallen glass rock. The man approached slowly, his posture low, hands open, no weapons raised. The creature hissed weakly, not out of threat, but confusion. It had never seen anything like him. He knelt. The human's voice cracked through static, a murmur, a song perhaps. Soft words without meaning to the hatchling but steady in tone. The small dragon stilled. He examined the rock. His tools were basic, nothing specialized. But hands that had built shelters on frozen moons and repaired reactors mid-battle moved with purpose. Above them, the Council watched silently. Heat sensors detected his effort. Pressure readings showed instability. The shelf beneath him could collapse. He didn't stop. The mother shifted from her perch. Her head inched forward. Her nostrils flared at the scent. She knew this was not one of her kind. Not a rescuer. Not a rival. Yet he moved like one who carried purpose greater than preservation. Minutes bled into hours. The man bled too, small tears in the suit, burns on exposed skin. He freed the hatchling's wing, applied a gel pack, reinforced with a brace pulled from his own gear. With a makeshift stretcher, he began the return. The climb was brutal. Rocks shifted beneath each footstep. The hatchling cried once, but the human pressed on. His body screamed. He could have called for evac. He didn't. When he emerged into view again, holding the youngling against his chest, the mother did not roar. She bowed her head, just slightly. Enough. Orbit remained silent. Every alien eye was watching. Some scanned for the human's insignia. No medals. No high-rank code. Just an ordinary designation. He wasn't sent. He chose to go. His boots landed with a jarring crunch as the pod's hatch hissed open behind him. Temperatures pushed beyond safe thresholds, but the suit held, for now. Visibility dropped to meters, the air clogged with ash and chemical fog. Static danced across his visor, cutting off external comms. He adjusted manually, rerouting power from the sensors to cooling units. No automation, no remote support. Just instinct, training, and refusal to leave the creature behind. The terrain was unstable. With each step, the earth groaned beneath him, veins of molten glass cracking beneath pressure. He avoided the direct path toward the sinkhole, circling instead to find firmer ground. As he moved, he caught flickers, movement, breathing, a small heat signature pulsing weakly under debris. He found it curled into itself, wings folded awkwardly, chest heaving. A soft whine escaped its throat, not loud enough to be a cry but enough to register urgency. The youngling was trembling. Its wing was pinned beneath a slab of translucent stone, thin but dense, the edges too sharp to shift with brute force. He crouched low and assessed the wound. Blood seeped from the limb, but the vitals were steady. No crushed organs. It could be saved. He dropped his gear beside him, carbon-threaded tension line, mini-lever rod, a roll of phase-cooling wrap, and a thermal shield. With one hand he activated the rod, sliding it beneath the slab, securing it with the line, using a cranked pulley to gradually relieve pressure. The movement was precise, every motion practiced, conserving energy. Sweat gathered beneath his helmet, fogging internal lenses. The hatchling didn't thrash. It watched, confused but no longer panicked. The human moved with deliberate rhythm, humming softly through his helmet's internal mic. Not for communication, just sound. Something steady in the chaos. He loosened the slab incrementally. When it shifted enough, he slid the injured wing out gently, applied the wrap, and used a splint to immobilize it. The youngling flinched but didn't resist. He recognized that, a basic biological truth. The creature understood he meant no harm. He wrapped the hatchling in a soft thermal blanket, adjusted it into a harness made from his own safety rig, and strapped it to his chest. He began the walk back toward his pod, but the way had changed. Ground once stable now steamed and hissed, warped from aftershocks. The ledge he descended from had cracked apart. His pod, still intact, stood unreachable across a growing fissure. He scanned alternative routes. Nothing above, so he moved sideways, navigating the canyon wall. The edge narrowed as he inched forward, boots barely gripping. The hatchling whimpered, pressure from the climb pressing on its injured wing. He adjusted the rig to relieve strain. His muscles burned. Each shift risked collapse. Midway across, part of the wall gave way. He caught himself with one arm, the other holding the creature tight against his body. His shoulder dislocated from the torque. Gritting his teeth, he pushed back up, leaning against the rock face. He couldn't stop. He reached a narrow outcropping and braced himself there, popping the shoulder back into place with a sickening grind. The pain blurred his vision. He blinked it away. He kept moving. By the time he reached the upper plateau, the sun was fading behind a toxic haze. Oxygen filters ran at 40%. He switched to backup canisters. The hatchling stirred, nudging against his chin. Not afraid, comforted. No one came to assist. No evac beacon had triggered. No drone dropped supplies. It had always been just him. He reached a flat space wide enough to deploy the emergency shelter. He anchored the structure, activated its low-energy shield, and crawled inside. He laid the hatchling on a pressure pad, attached a biomonitor, and calibrated warmth levels. The small creature had fallen asleep, chest rising slowly. He sat beside it, arms trembling, pain flooding back now that the mission-critical moment had passed. Suit damage was extensive. Internal warning lights flashed steadily. He patched the worst breaches manually, sealing cracks with backup filament and coolant foam. His own vitals dipped but remained above collapse threshold. No sounds outside. No messages from orbit. Just wind, ash, and fading light. He recorded a short entry. Creature stabilized. Wing treated. Resting now. Awaiting extraction. But no extraction came. He didn't sleep. He remained by the hatchling, every few minutes adjusting its brace, checking its breath, whispering noise just loud enough to be felt. Not words. Just presence. Warmth. Contact. Above, satellites captured only heat signatures. One human. One infant Karinith. Alive. Unmoving. On every frequency, not a single request was made for retreat. Because humans didn't leave anything behind. The ground trembled again, harder this time. He steadied himself, shielding the hatchling as fine debris rained against the shelter walls. Seismic patterns were escalating, not decaying. This wasn't just the aftermath of planetary instability, it was interference. Artificial. Coordinated. His HUD caught brief pings above, unfamiliar craft signatures circling the region, moving in deliberate patterns. Their trajectories converged near the canyon. The Zalari had arrived. Their ships didn't descend to help. Instead, autonomous drones detached and fanned out across the landscape, scanning ruins, cataloging biosignatures. Salvage operations masked as exploration. They weren't here for rescue, they were here for opportunity. The hatchling, the crash site, even the mother, valuable data, nothing more. He disabled his beacon. The last thing he needed was a digital flag painting a target over the shelter. The drones weren't aggressive, yet. But proximity protocols meant he couldn't stay hidden for long. They would detect the hatchling's heat signature within minutes. He didn't have hours anymore. The hatchling stirred weakly. Its condition was stable but far from recovered. Movement would risk the injury reopening. But staying meant exposure. There was no choice. He resecured the brace, packed only essential gear, and bundled the creature against his chest, insulating it from shock. He exited the shelter just as the first drone passed overhead, its skin beams slicing a clean line across the charred rock. He moved beneath its sweep, hugging the terrain, watching its rotation pattern. No response yet. But one wrong reflection from his suit could draw attention. He slipped through a broken ridge and began navigating a narrow trench system running parallel to the extraction point. The plateau was miles off, and now guarded by Zalari sentries. Direct approach was suicide. He'd have to circle east, skirting heat vents and impact craters. Halfway through the trench, two drones descended in tandem, scanning closer now. His suit's thermal regulator began to short from overuse. His internal temperature climbed. He adjusted the hatchling's position to shield it further, bearing the full heat against his torso. It whimpered softly, but didn't cry. A sharp sound cracked overhead. One of the drones had shifted behavior, no longer scanning, now tracking. It had detected the motion. He ran. Not fast. Not recklessly. But precise. Each step placed with purpose, each turn anticipated. He dipped into an alcove, used a shard of reflective ore to misdirect the drone's sensor beam, and slipped further through the corridor of shattered earth. The drone fired a low-grade pulse blast, non-lethal, meant to disorient. The edge of the blast grazed his right leg, burning through the outer layer of the suit. He didn't stop. With his free hand, he tossed a thermal flare behind him, drawing the drone's path away. He climbed a ledge with one arm, blood dripping down the other from the leg wound. The hatchling pressed against him, breathing heavily. He whispered again, not for it to understand, but to hold its focus. The sound soothed it. That was enough. Reaching a higher shelf, he spotted movement across the ridge. The mother dragon. She had not fled. She remained at the edge of the chasm, low to the ground, wings limp, eyes fixed toward him. Her body was battered beyond function, but her presence hadn't faded. She was tracking every drone, sensing their pattern. He followed her gaze. 3 drones regrouped near a lava vent, preparing to launch probes toward the plateau. The route he planned to use would soon be compromised. But the mother shifted, pushing herself upright slightly. She released a deep pulse from her throat, low, rhythmic, like a seismic hum. The vent area vibrated, misleading the drone's sensors. They adjusted, redirecting toward the false signal. It bought him just enough time. He sprinted the final stretch toward a collapsed arch, squeezing through a narrow crevice just before the drones returned. On the other side lay a slope of cooled ash, the terrain beginning to level. The hatchling trembled but stayed silent. His leg bled freely now, motion growing sluggish, but he didn't pause. With the drones scattered and the path ahead clearing, he reached a shallow crater with natural cover. He laid the hatchling down gently, checked the wing. It held. He adjusted the brace, gave it a sip from his emergency hydration capsule, and leaned back against the rock. Above them, the mother dragon locked eyes with him across the distance. She didn't move closer. She didn't need to. He'd done what her wings could not. The hatchling stirred beside him, restless now, its breathing shallow and uneven. Despite the makeshift treatment, its body trembled with strain. It wasn't pain, it was calling. A sound barely audible, high-pitched and insistent. He turned, scanning the ruined terrain behind them. There was no threat. But the hatchling refused to settle. Its eyes flicked downward, toward the crevice they'd crossed. It was searching for something else. There had been 2. The second hatchling, lost in the initial collapse, hadn't been seen since. He looked down at the weak creature beside him, the pattern of distress unmistakable. It wasn't crying for help, it was crying for its sibling. He stared at the fissure below. Sensors showed a faint spike in heat and motion deep inside, faint but not entirely gone. The probability of survival was low, but not zero. He removed the blanket, secured the resting hatchling within the crater, shielded it with terrain, and rechecked his gear. No backup power, no full oxygen reserve. Injured. Limited time. He descended again. Each step toward the fracture was more brutal than the last. The terrain was thinner here, crust over hollow earth, the depth beneath unknown. He rigged a tether to a rock outcrop, attached a line to his suit, and lowered himself slowly into the narrow shaft. Heat climbed, the glow from beneath shifting in waves. 50 feet down, he found it. The second hatchling lay partially buried beneath fractured crystal. Its wing was mangled, but the chest rose and fell. Barely. He slid closer, dislodging the debris one piece at a time. The rocks had crushed its lower limb, but not fatally. He used the last of his gel to numb the sight, bound the injury, and lifted the body into his arms. The ascent was slower. His leg burned with each step, muscles near collapse, but he climbed. At the top, he laid both hatchlings side by side. One curled immediately against the other, weak claws wrapping around its sibling. No panic now. They were together. That was enough for them. But not for him. He had to get them out. The plateau stretched ahead. He began constructing a travois from the broken remains of the shelter struts. It wasn't elegant. It just had to hold. He fastened the hatchlings securely, adjusted their braces, and began the final journey toward the mother. She had moved closer, her broken frame dragging inch by inch across the wasteland. Her claws tore at the rock as she pulled herself forward, driven not by instinct but recognition. Her massive head bowed as he approached. She exhaled, not smoke or fire, but a gust of warmth. It surrounded him, a breath of gratitude. He didn't retreat. He stepped closer, placed the travois down, and opened the bindings. The hatchlings crawled slowly into her shadow. She encircled them with her neck, shielding them gently beneath her chin. One nuzzled against her scarred scales. She held still, watching him with eyes that shimmered gold, unblinking. The orbiting stations recorded it all. Council monitors logged every movement, every biometric reading. There had been no aggression, no attempt at dominance. No demand made. Just a human walking into certain death, dragging life back with him. Diplomatic channels fell quiet. For cycles, they had branded humanity reckless, primitive in spirit. But now they watched in silence, unable to explain what they were seeing. He collapsed beside the rock outcropping, the last of his energy bleeding out. His suit had failed in 3 places. The emergency systems flickered, barely sustaining core functions. He leaned back against the stone, watching the sky darken. The mother didn't look away from him. Her tail curled gently toward his direction, not threatening, not encircling. Just present. No medevac came. The human hadn't requested one. Later, when the council replayed the feeds, they focused on that moment, the silence, the unspoken exchange, the proximity of 2 species that shared no language, no treaty, no agreement. Just an understanding. Other species would call it madness. A waste of life. A pointless risk. But the Karanith called it something else. They called it honor. He opened his eyes to filtered light and the quiet hiss of artificial air. White panels curved above him, medbay architecture, clean, minimal, unmistakably human. His suit was gone. Fresh bandages wrapped his shoulder and thigh. Pain pulsed under every breath, but he was alive. A soft pulse monitor beeped beside him, steady, constant. He sat up slowly. Across the room, standing still in complete silence, was the mother dragon. Her head nearly brushed the ceiling, her damaged wings carefully folded. She didn't move when he looked. She had no need to. The understanding had already been sealed, not in words but action. Behind her, curled in a padded containment chamber modified by the crew, both hatchlings rested. Their bodies repaired. Their eyes closed. Peaceful. The council hadn't interfered. Human command logs confirmed it. There had been a debate, high-level and brief, followed by a single conclusion, no reprimand, no questions. Just the retrieval team ordered to recover him and the young. The council offered no apology. But they no longer blocked transmissions. They made no demands. The Karanith now had a voice through humanity's channel. A protected nesting ground was designated on neutral terrain. The dragons would not be monitored. They would be respected. Human volunteers assisted with relocation, no cages, no labs, just terrain mapped for shelter, growth, safety. Humanity didn't colonize them. They offered space. And stayed nearby. He returned to the outpost on the cliff where it had all begun, watching the horizon from the repaired observation station. The mother remained nearby, rarely flying, but walking each day across the ridge, ensuring her young remained in sight. They grew fast. Stronger. Their wings extended farther each week. One had taken to mimicking crew movements, head tilts, pacing, even kneeling beside humans without prompting. The one he'd carried first, the one from the sinkhole, never strayed far from him. It approached during low-light cycles, pressing its snout into his side. It listened when he spoke. Not for language, just the sound. The rhythm. Like before. He didn't give them names. They were not pets, not symbols. They were survivors, kin to fire and stone, as ancient in nature as they were new to trust. And they remembered. Council drones arrived once, weeks later, silent and unarmed. They scanned from afar, transmitted data, then departed. No species offered challenge. Not after the footage. The image had traveled far, of him dragging 2 dying hatchlings through ash while the mother limped behind, refusing to leave him even after she was free. No military parade. No staged declaration. Just one human standing in fire to save what others wouldn't. Other species began asking questions. Not about domination. about protection. Humanity's nature became harder to define. They weren't conquerors. They weren't diplomats. They were the ones who stayed when it was hardest. Who walked toward danger and refused to look away. No protocol, no prediction. Just presence. The hatchlings flew together for the first time under pale violet skies, their arcs uneven, wings testing unknown limits. He stood below, silent. The mother watched from a ledge, her frame smaller than before, not in size, but in posture, less guard, more guide. When one stumbled in midair, the other tilted and caught it, stabilizing the glide. No panic. No fall. Just instinct between siblings, learned from something deeper than their species alone. He received an offer to leave, return home, accept recognition. He refused. He chose reassignment to the outpost, permanent observer status. He didn't need a title. The dragons already knew who he was. One night, during the fourth cycle since the rescue, he sat alone beneath a ruined arch near the nesting field. The smaller hatchling approached, nudging a stone into his lap. Not a toy, not a command. A gesture. He examined it. The edges had been shaped by heat, smoothed against volcanic stone. It wasn't random. It was given. He placed it beside him, said nothing. Far above, stars moved quietly, light years passing without permission. But down here, on a planet abandoned by maps, one man had changed the fate of an ancient species, not with force, not with strategy, but with refusal to let any life be called expendable. They said humans were impulsive, that they lacked control, that they rushed into fire without thinking. And maybe they were right. But sometimes, that's exactly what saves the world.